This FM24 tactic is so good, some players actually consider it cheating. Now you asked for it, so in this video we're going to break down all the player rules, player instructions, and team instructions that make this tactic exceptionally good. Now last week we did go on to share a video about a tactic that went on to score over 246 goals in a league season with Stoke City. So it turns out that that tactic actually follows the same principle that this tactic is using. So what is this special tactic? We will be starting off with a clean slate so you can actually see all the player instructions in detail and all the team instructions, so you can go step by step and figure out how we can actually go about recreating this system. I'm starting off with a 4-4-2 template, and that is the way it's going to go as it is right now. And the reason why this tactic is so good is because it uses certain player roles that I think are quite very good in Football Manager this year, and you're going to see most of them. Some of them you might be familiar with them, but we're just going to set up the player roles first, and we're going to start off with the goalkeeper. Now the goalkeeper in this system is a super keeper on defend duty. Normally I like the one on support, but oddly you want to have your super keeper be a bit more aggressive and try to tackle the opposition harder. Usually when a player gets into the box, I think it helps in Football Manager 2024 to just have every player have the tackle harder instruction selected for them. Now ahead of that super keeper, we're going to have two ball playing defenders, and they're using the, well, I'd like to say the overpowered instructions for ball playing defenders. You're going to have one here, ball playing defender. He's going to dribble more, and he's also going to tackle harder. His partner, his mate by the side of him, he's also going to play as a ball playing defender here. Same instructions for him. Go ahead and ask him to tackle harder, and of course dribble more, carry the ball out of the defense, and then try to disrupt the opposition's movement and disrupt their pressing by that singular movement alone. Now in most overpowered tactics you see that you have two fullbacks on attack duty, but in this case we're going to have an inverted fullback here on support, or inverted wingback, sorry, on support duty. Now the inverted wingback is essentially going to act like a fullback, but in that sense he's going to be the one to cut inside. So you're not using just the fullback role and asking him to cut inside. He's acting like a wingback that's going to just take advantage of the space in the defensive midfield position. So you're going to ask him to take more risk and tackle harder. Those are the only instructions for the inverted wingback. Pretty simple, but you notice again that the tackle harder instruction has been selected for him. Beside the other ball playing defender, we have a fullback. This time he is also playing on attack duty, but the fullback on attack duty, you're going to want him to take more risk. You want him to get all the way up to the byline and try to cross the ball. Since the other fullback is not going to get very high up, he's going to be the one offering the width on this side. He's going to cross the ball from the byline. You want him to also act like an inverted wing back in a sense, where he's going to try and cut inside with the ball, but this is when the player has just received possession of the ball. Often he's still going to get into the byline and cross the ball from there. You also want him to stay wider, stretch the pitch a bit, and also tackle harder, get in the face of the opposition and try to retrieve the ball as aggressively as possible. So that's it for the back four. Then we're moving into midfield now, and most of the rules that I like in this one is because the system is somewhat asymmetrically staggered. We're going to start with a defensive midfielder. We're going to just pull the central midfielder here into the DM position and then ask him to play as a defensive midfielder on support DT. Why I like this role, especially for the 4-3-3 systems, but this isn't a 4-3-3. You're going to ask him to just tackle harder, nothing more. Often, in some cases, you can ask him to take more risk, but I didn't really see the need to do that. And in the original system, he's not even taking more risk as well. He's just tackling harder, protecting the defense, protecting the back four. So that's all that you need. The player responsible for taking more risk in this system is actually the second Volante. Beside him, he is going to be on attack duty. And if you look at the second Volante's instructions, all you want him to do is to move into channel first. Like I said, take more risk, and he's going to tackle harder just like all the other players in the team. Beside this, the Volante is a very aggressive player in the winger. Now I'm not going to change the role here. This winger is going to be a winger on support duty. You're going to want the winger to take more risks, try and create more chances from the wide areas. You also want him to get into the byline and try to cross the ball. Remember that the inverted wingback behind him is not going to be the one getting into the byline, so he's going to be the one to offer the width on this side, just like the fullback is offering the width on the other side. On FM24, you can actually ask the winger to cut inside with the ball. That is something that we didn't really see in previous Football Manager games, and here it works quite well. So even though he's going to get to the byline, he's still going to try and cut inside. If it's a player that is good on his left foot or on his right foot, he can come inside, cause a lot of havoc, act like an inverted winger, and still also stay out wide, starting from a wider position, and still be able to get the crosses coming in from the byline. You want him to be a bit more aggressive with his pressing, so he's going to close down a lot more in this sense. He's also going to tackle harder, and very important instruction here that you don't miss it. You're going to ask him to mark the fullback of the opposition's team. Now this is my left winger, so he's going to mark the opposition's right back. If you're playing against a battery system, you're going to want him to mark the wing back on the right for that opposition's team. So that's it for the winger. I think he's the one with the most instructions in this system. On the right wing, we have a player that cuts inside, but he's not going to be on this position here. We're going to just pull him slightly up and then take the inside forward for this particular role. This time he's going to play on attack duty. Now the inside forward, very similar to the winger that is playing on the left hand side. You're going to ask him first to mark the left back that is playing for the opposition team. Remember, if you're playing in a back three system, you're going to want to mark the wing back on the left hand side. So that's going to be the first instruction I'm going to put in so you don't forget. Because the fullback behind him is on attack duty, you're going to ask the inside forward on attack to sit narrower. You also want him to contribute defensively, so you can go ahead and ask him to press a lot more often. And so we don't forget, tackle harder instruction has to be included in there as well. Now the two attackers I quite like. One of my favorite roles this year is the pressing forward, especially on support duty. I've actually used this guy as a lone forward before for Leeds United and it did work quite well. But for the pressing forward here on support, he's playing beside somebody else. So we're going to ask him to move into channels. He's already tackling harder, so you don't need to force that. You also want him to roam from positions, try and be a nuisance in the 18-yard box and be very difficult to mark. So that is the two instructions for him. The advanced forward on this other side only has the one instruction, which is to tackle harder. So that is all the player instructions and player roles gone in. We can now look at the team instructions and see how the team actually shapes up. I like to start with the other possession instructions first because I do feel like the defensive part of the game is very important and you need to nail that down first before you start worrying about how the team is going to play in transition or in when they're in possession of the ball. That is just the way I look at it. It's different for everybody else. Out of possession first, you're going to want your team to play with a much higher defensive line. This is a bit risky, I know, but trust me, it works in this game as well. You also want them to play with a high press. You have enough bodies up front, two strikers, one inside forward. So basically it's a three and another three behind them. This at the segundo volante is going to get ahead. So he's going to be somewhere high up like this. You're going to have enough bodies up front. Even the defensive midfielder on support duty is going to get slightly higher up. So you have enough bodies in there to have a high press and a high defensive line. You can go ahead and ask the team to play with a much more often trigger press as well. You also want the team to prevent the short goalkeeper distribution when they're there. Like I said, you have the numbers up front so you can hassle the opposition and force them to play the ball long. I know it's quite counterintuitive because you have a much higher defensive line. So more often than not, this forces the goalkeeper to actually make mistakes rather than just leaving you exposed to a counter attack. The tackle harder instruction has been selected for all the players, where you can still go over to the team instructions and ask them to get stuck in. You're also going to step up more and then invite crosses. The crossing part, I think, is because you need to have two tall defenders. If you don't have tall defenders, you may not want to check this option. But in case you have two tall centre backs, you can go ahead and ask them to invite the crosses. It forces the opposition to actually go out wide and cross the ball. Instead of coming in through the midfield and through the penalty box and try to score you, they can go out wide and then you can win the header. For the in-transition instructions, counter press and counter are always selected for this sort of system. It's very aggressive. You need to win the ball back early, high up the pitch. You also want your goalkeeper to distribute the ball quickly, and you want him to roll it out to the centre backs or the fullbacks, anyone that is actually in the vicinity to actually receive possession of the ball. You don't want to just waste possession by hoofing the ball long and then expecting that somebody's going to get it in the air. That's a bit risky. Now for the in possession phase, you want your team to play with a shorter passing directness. You don't want them to rush the ball too much. You also want them to pass into space, and from the tempo is going to be higher, so not just slightly pushing the tempo all the way up. So even though your team is playing with a much shorter passing and try to focus on retaining possession of the ball, they will try to move it quickly and move it into the opposition's territory and try to score a goal. Moving up to the approach play, then you're going to want to exploit the focus on the left and on the right hand side, also asking the team to pass into space. This is relevant because if you look at the way the team is shaped up, there's a lot of space in between. There's nobody in this wide midfield left row, there's nobody in the attacking midfield position, there's nobody in the AML winger position, so there's a lot of space that can actually be run into. So if you go ahead and play into space, there's somebody that can actually run onto the ball and then carry it forward. For this default system, you notice that the inverted wing back is on support duty, so you can go ahead and check the underlap instruction. It actually helps him get into that position. And remember that the winger that is on that side is actually going to stretch the pitch, stay wider, giving time for the inverted wing back to actually get into the space that is in there. For the crosses, we like to lead this on low crosses because walking those crosses from the byline into the box, just playing a square pass, can actually help us get a lot more goals. And for the attacking width, you want your team to play with a very narrow width. Now, this is the default system as it is right now. Balance mentality with the underlap set and everything that is supposed to be in there. But if you want to have the very attacking version of this tactic, you can then go ahead and make a copy of this tactic. Very simple, 4-2-2-2 system. Just go ahead and copy it. And what you want to do in this sense to have the very attacking variant of this tactic is to go ahead and change the mentality from balance to an attacking mentality, and then go into the in possession instructions and then uncheck the underlap on that side. So this is going to be the attacking variant, what we like to call the revenge mode version of this tactic. So we have two versions of this tactic there, one with the balance mentality and an underlap included for the inverted wing back on support, encouraging him to get forward. But then when you have the very attacking variant, you don't really need to force the underlap. because the inverted wingback is going to try and get forward anyway. So just having the attacking mentality in there just gives us the variant that we're looking for, the very aggressive revenge mode attacking variant of this tactic. So that is the system that we've been working at, the 4-2-2-2 system. It looks like a 4-2-4 to me. I kind of call it the 4-2-4, but looking at it now and breaking down the system, it kind of also looks like a 4-3-3 system. So it depends on how you go about looking at it. Let me know in the comment section what you think of this tactic. This is the complete breakdown as requested. For more Football Manager videos like this, do hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any more new videos that do come up. I'll see you in the next video.